Why, hello, all my dear little actuarial students, trainees, fellow credentialed actuaries, actuary curious, um, actuarially adjacent folks. Obviously, I am talking about actuarial things today because I have some actuarial fairy tales. It's a book by John Lee, which came out recently. And since you have been all very good little actuarials, I'm going to read you a tale from the book. The Three Little Actuarial Pigs. I will provide the data source in the video notes, give you a link. Assumptions. Pigs can become actuaries and construct statistical models. Outlier data point wolves prowl around looking for models built on poor assumptions. Huffing and puffing from outlier wolves destroys actuarial models with poor assumptions. We may now begin our tale. Once upon an ungrounded assumption, there were three little trainee actuary pigs, and each of their companies tasked them with building their very first model. Now, as the first actuarial pig was wandering around the office, he met a man carrying a normality assumption. So he said very politely, "If you please, sir, could you give me that assumption to build a model of log returns on the stock market?" And the man, seeing what good manners the little actuarial pig had, being shocked that an actuary spoke to him in the first place, and it was a talking pig, gave him the assumption, and the little actuary set to work and built a beautiful model with it. And it fitted all the data so well once he removed all the values that didn't conform to its assumptions. Since normality was mathematically convenient, he finished constructing the model in no time. However, an outlier data point wolf, more than 3 standard deviations away from the mean, passed by that office, saw the model, and smelt the trainee actuarial pig who had built it. So the outlier wolf knocked at the model and said, "Little actuary, let me come in." But the little actuarial pig saw the extreme data point wolf, which didn't fit his normal model, and answered back, "My assumptions say that's a big sin." Then the data point wolf showed his teeth and said, "Then I'll huff, and I'll puff, and I'll blow your model in." So he huffed and he puffed, and the leptocurtic nature of investment returns blew the model in. The outlier wolf ate up the pride of the little trainee actuary, who then quit the profession in shame. And so the Kaplan-Meier estimate of the survival function of actuarial trainees' models dropped from 1 to 2/3. Now, as the second actuarial pig was wandering around the office, he met a man carrying a last year's assumptions and experience adjustment. So he said very politely, "If you please, sir, could you give me those assumptions to build a model of our pension liabilities?" And the man, seeing what good manners the little actuarial pig had, and how the actuary conformed to actuarial best practice, gave him the assumptions and experience adjustment, and the little actuary set to work and built a beautiful model with it. However, the outlier data point wolf passed by that office, saw the model, and smelt the trainee actuarial pig who had built it. So the outlier wolf knocked at the model and said, "Little actuary, let me come in." But the little actuarial pig saw that his past data did not predict this wolf's data point, and answered back, "My assumptions say that's a big sin." I'm not very good at doing voices, sorry guys. Then the outlier wolf showed his teeth and said, "And then I'll huff and I'll puff and I'll blow your model in." So he huffed and he puffed, and the pandemic blew the model in. The outlier wolf ate up the pride of the little trainee actuary, who then quit the profession in shame. And so the Kaplan-Meier estimate of the survival function of actuarial trainees' models dropped from 2/3 to 1/3. Now, as the third actuarial pig was wandering around the office, he met a man carrying Box's assumption that all models are wrong, but some are useful. So he said very politely, "If you please, sir, could you give me that assumption to build a model that will expect a non-conforming data point?" You may have noticed I used my own voice. And the man, seeing how the little actuarial pig had clearly been reading the Actuary magazine, gave him the assumption, and the little actuary set to work and with much effort built a beautiful model based on it, which he had peer-reviewed. However, the outlier data point passed by that office, saw the model, smelt the trainee actuarial pig who had built it, so the outlier wolf knocked at the model and said, "Little actuary, let me come in." The little actuary saw the expected outlier wolf and answered back, "Sure, come on in." And this mightily confused the data point. For if he went in, he would confirm the model's assumptions, which he clearly didn't want to do. But if he went away, then clearly he wouldn't be able to go in and break the model. So, after much hesitation, the outlier wolf eventually went in to see if he could wreak havoc on the model from the inside. But the model ate the outlier data point wolf up, and the company promoted the trainee actuarial pig, which boosted his pride. So, the Kaplan-Meier estimate of the survival function of the actuarial trainees models remained at 1/3, and the trainee actuary would have lived happily ever after had he not then failed his next exam because he didn't have time to study whilst meeting his increased work responsibilities. So, this is the book, and I'll show you the page. Here's Actuarial Fairy Tales, Statistically Significant Stories. This is by John Lee. John Lee is an actuarial tutor in the United Kingdom. He's done a couple other of these books. Let me just click on him so we can see his, they're going to give me his page. Uh-oh. The problem is when you have a common name, and so I actually looked my own name up. How many people have my name in the U.S.? Mary Campbell, without my middle name. There's a lot of Mary Campbells in the U.S. Anyway, so yeah, Confessions of an Actuarial Tutor in Statistics. So those are a little different. The actuarial fairy tales, and you can tell from the three little actuarial pigs. He takes traditional fairy stories, folk tales, and you'll recognize all of them. And he provides a link to, how can you say, canonical versions of these stories. And actually, some of the links will take you to places where they compile the multiple versions of the stories, like you see with Grimm's fairy tales. And all of these are told with an actuarial twist. So it's cute. If you're an actuary, you'll get the jokes. They're not too esoteric. In the three little actuarial pigs, obviously, some of these jokes are a little more esoteric than others. Leptokurtic. Okay, fine. It just means they have fat tails. The equity returns are not, even if you slap a log on them, it's not normally distributed. There are some more extreme events than a log normal assumption would be able to fit. Okay, but I just want to say, just like Box, so Box is well known for his quotes, all models are wrong, but some are useful. The whole point of modeling, and going back to my favorite actuarial standard of practice in the US, the new one on modeling. All models are a simplification of reality so that you have something that you can use. There's nothing wrong with a normal assumption for certain kinds of uses, even for stock returns. But, if those extreme events really cause problems for your product, for your situation, then yeah, you have to incorporate it in your model somehow. Similarly, for just looking at, well, what was it like last year, and then just trend it, which is a very popular technique in the actuarial world, and then you have a pandemic. What are you going to do then? Let's just say actuaries did know. They did try various stress scenarios, etc. And that's what the last little piggy did. So we have a toolkit. We have an actuarial toolkit. This is a cute book. If I was teaching at UConn still, I'd actually get a bunch of these books and hand these out as prizes to students. They might not think they were prizes. I don't know. Maybe throw them at students. This isn't very big. John had, and I will disclose, John had given me a review copy, not this paperback. He had given me an ebook review copy for me to look at, and I liked it so much, and I have a complete actuarial bookshelf. Been posting some pictures of it. I'll have to do a tour in the spring once I get my library completely, well, maybe not completely, but cleaned up. And I wanted to have a physical book that I could put on the shelf. So it's nice to have a physical book, and it's got the whole thing in it. There's no difference, between if you prefer ebooks, then read it on an ebook. It's just fine as an ebook. It's fine as a paperback. Um, so I'll just read a few of, not just from the table of contents, just in case you're interested. I'm not reading all of them. Little Red-Eyed Writing Actuary, Goldilocks and the Three Bear Market Analysts, Hansel and Gumble, The Gingerbread Actuary, I'm skipping around here, The Frogtuary Prince, The Three Bond Goats Gruff. There's a bunch at the end, and I'm just skipping over. There's a bunch at the end that are called residuals, which are mostly bad puns. I read The Three Little Actuarial Pigs because you notice it was more conceptual, not really much in the way of puns. But yeah, this thing is chock full of puns, and people know I'm not really big on puns. But even so, it is a fun book for, we needed some fresh and new actuarial jokes, so that's kind of nice to have. Anyway, I'll drop a link for the book. He's, want some actuarial specific humor. If you know an actuary, need an actuarial gift, it's nice to have a book. Rather than one of those mini generated mugs and stuff that you see ads for on Facebook, where, blah, 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 actuaries do it better or whatever, where they just generate it for multiple professions, etc. These are real. I'm vouching for this. There are real actuarial jokes in here. Seriously. There were a bunch, I was going to say, it was peer reviewed. He has thank yous. I was not one of the people who reviewed it to begin with, but let's see. Greg Solomon, Emma Wang, Jordan Chung, Kanishka Singal, Catchuary is very funny on Twitter, Raquel Stokes, Adam Barros, Sheikh Muchaba Ali, David Yardley, Dave Johnson, Lee Costanza, Sam Naud, and Sam I am sorry, I'm very bad with a lot of vowels. Mawoyo. Sorry, guys. Anyway, lots of jokes, lots of actuarial jokes. It's a lot of fun. If you like actuaries. And you can always ask me or ask John, he's online too, to explain the jokes. I didn't explain any of the jokes. Well, okay, I'm sorry, I did explain some of the jokes. Well, that's an actuary for you. Okay. See y'all.